It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Garvin. This is the KQ Morning Show. I feel like I just walked out of an AC/DC concert. Yeah. That's a way to kick off a Tuesday afternoon or a morning or a night. I'm hammered. What about you, Zep?
Yeah, I'm just kind of buzzed. I'm crafting a buzz this morning.
Jeez, man. I kind of forget how much, for those about to rock, really, makes me want to rock. AC/DC, long rumored to be touring one last time. No word yet. However, at 8 o'clock this morning, I believe it's at 8 o'clock, the Rolling Stones will make an announcement that may or may not have something to do with all of the cities in North America where they're blasting their Lips logo all over buildings and putting up billboards. The Stones touring in 24, the official tour announcement in a couple of hours. Of course, hoping for a Twin Cities appearance, although I'm not betting on it since they were just here in 21. But we will see, and we will let you know when those dates are announced. Speaking of throwing back, speaking of the Stones and AC/DC and back at a time when all was right in the world, last night on The Late Show on CBS, Stephen Colbert's show, he welcomed back to the Ed Sullivan Theater for the first time since he left David Letterman. Remember Dave Letterman? Kind of a funny guy there for a while, kind of rewrote the rules of comedy when we were all in high school and college. Yeah. Letterman returning to the scene of the crime, at least his CBS show, where he hosted from 1993 until, what was it, 6 or 7 years ago when he pulled the plug. Stephen Colbert welcomed Letterman back. I saw some clips, and honestly, I was surprised at how kind of goosebumpy it was for me. I grew up a Letterman fanatic, so it was pretty awesome to see.
Mm-hmm. Dave changed everything. Changed comedy for the time.
Sure.
My guest tonight certainly needs no introduction. Please welcome back to the Ed Sullivan Theater, Mr. David Letterman.
Stephen, control your people. I will say this is the most enthusiastic audience I have been near since the night I announced I was quitting.
Oh, you got to have that bass slide there, the rim shot and the boom.
Sure.
I remember first seeing David Letterman in 1982. I want to say 1982, before he started late nights after Johnny Carson. They had him on NBC early morning.
Yeah,
when his farm kids used to get up. And I remember one morning, and he had the big curly hair. He couldn't have looked goofier. Nope. We became accustomed to his look after a while, right? But there, I thought, who the heck is that? And he was young, and he was weird, and he was trying to figure out how to operate a forklift. They had forklifts there in the NBC studio, and he just walked over. He said, "Here, let me see that. Can I drive? Show me how to work this thing." And it seemed very spontaneous and impromptu, and I became a fan that day and remained for many, many years. Until late night television became irrelevant.
That was a must watch every night.
Yeah.
Tony, you as a guy who started writing and then even performing comedy and going into it, I look at you and it just hits me. I'm like, oh, Letterman is just everything. I mean, sure, in those years especially, because you were a few years older than me, and what Letterman was doing to me when late night started, you had a few years of experience. It probably hit you even deeper.
That was the dream, is to someday be involved with that show somehow. I knew a guy who submitted a couple jokes, and he was like a god just for having any involvement whatsoever. Yeah, Dave changed it all. You had to watch it.
Yeah.
It shaped humor.
It truly did. It was so, you say whatever, irreverent or left of center in terms of comic. It was so unexpected. But, I never got the sense he was trying to be weird. He was just weird. You know what I mean? They just thought differently. And for me, the late night show started, I'm in 11th grade, just a perfect time to have a wide open brain looking for new information to fill it. And, I played on Letterman a bunch with the band, and I've talked to other musicians. Now, for stand-up comics, for writers, for performers, going on Letterman's a huge deal. For every band you talk to, if you ever talk to a musician, especially in a rock band that was ever on Letterman, that was the one you wanted. I mean, more than any other talk show, it was like, man, you did Dave? How was he? Was he cool? I mean, there was something about Dave that just crossed over right to bands. And famously, well, like there's a band called The National that was on last night because Dave asked them to come on. Stephen Colbert said, come on my show. And Dave said, can we have The National? And then, of course, his final show, he had the Foo Fighters come out because he had a very deep connection with that band after his heart attack. He listened to a lot of their music. He was just a guy that for whatever it's worth, you know, and the first time we played Letterman in 1990, I didn't even play. They didn't even allow the rhythm section of the Black Crowes to play. It was the house band and our singer and guitarists. And I was still, I mean, I wasn't upset at all. I was just, I couldn't believe, like Tony, like your friend got a couple jokes submitted. He was just being in the studio there. I was in absolute shock. I was looking for Larry Bud Melman. I was, you know, I was
the stage.
I was looking for the Alka-Seltzer suit. You know, I'm thinking about all the things like, and in my dorm, that's the thing, man. Late night TV. I mean, where is it now? What is the point almost? Do you know anybody that watches late night TV in real time?
Well, he was kind of the first to blend smart and silly seamlessly.
Yeah.
And you never knew what was going to happen. One of my favorite moments on that show is they had a little bit, it was called Supermarket Finds. It was just ridiculous where they would go and look at silly things that you'd find on the shelves of grocery stores.
Yeah.
But for the theme song, all of a sudden the screen burst open and it was Tom Jones singing the theme to Supermarket Finds.
Sure.
Just preposterous.
Yeah.
But you never knew what was going to happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
when he was on CBS, he'd leave the late night. I mean, he'd walk around there just to the deli, get a little something from the deli. And
Yes,
it'd turn
Hello
into entire
Deli.
day. By the way, you said Bud Melman. I mentioned Under the Seats. That was Chris Elliott. I remember he on the writing
sure.
team and then
Right
brought
under
up
the
for
stairs.
that. Well, Steve, I mean, we've got Mike Evans is recorded. We'll get to that. We have an extra couple of minutes because you were on the Black Crowes, that is, on more than just the Late Night with David Letterman show. And you said you didn't have much interaction with him. How was it different than being on, say, the Conan show?
Well, the Letterman show was always, we never saw him. We never crossed paths. You'd go to your dressing room, you'd go rehearse, you'd spend the whole afternoon there getting ready for the show. And like Paul Schaefer and the band, always, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Remembered everyone's name every time. You know, super pros, great guys. They want to talk about gear. You know, you watch the guitar players go have their little guitar gear jerk off in the corner, like whatever. But but great guys. And Dave was just never around. You'd see him when he'd come over. The song would end, he'd shake your hand, and that's the only time we ever saw the guy. But that was okay. Like it seemed to be perfectly acceptable that he was just unavailable somehow. Conan was the exact opposite. He just wanted to hang out with the band. He was like, you know, and he would say like, sorry, just tell me to leave if I'm bugging you with my questions, you know, and it was kind of exactly what you would expect. Yeah. Also, but that was also awesome. Those were the two best ones to do every time, both because they're in New York, there's a different energy. We never did Carson. We did the Tonight Show in Jay Leno's first week as the host in 92. And I was not a Leno guy, and I was already, and of course, like everyone, I'd taken sides, and I was pro Dave and anti Jay. But when we did Leno, also, I mean, I didn't care for his show, but he was a great guy. Always came in, said hi, did the thing. What you doing? Need anything? Let me know. Couldn't have been a nicer fella. But again, at the end of all of it, never once met Dave, and that was always the coolest place to be for some reason. It was like just because it was Dave, and that takes me right back to 1982 in a small town in Kentucky, looking at my TV going, I'm not even sure what's happening, but I just need to be a part of that somehow.
Have you ever seen the video of him sucking on Jennifer Aniston's hair?
I have not.
No.
It's real creepy.
He's a creepy guy, but boy, was he funny. And
Sometimes you got to be creepy to be funny.
One thing that's really amazing, have you guys watched his Netflix show, his new interview show?
Yeah, a couple episodes.
I mean, what a just, and without the constraints of network people telling him to remember to do this. I mean, him just sort of unfiltered and unfettered. He really is just brilliant. I mean, what an insightful, smart man. And it's, I don't know, I'm a card-carrying fan. And so anyway, to see him walk out there last night, all white hair, white beard, looking great, it just made, I was really happy.
I think someone tweeted an emaciated Santa. This is Colbert asking Letterman last night after his years in late-night television what he misses most.
What do you miss about it after all those 4,000 shows? What do you miss most about doing, if there is anything?
I miss everything. I mean, mostly it's fun. Very few things in life provide one the opportunity, and I can't speak for you or to you on this topic, but for me, if you muck one up, 24 hours later, you get to try again. And that's a pretty good device. And then when you do something that you're really proud of, you think, by God, let's do that again. And 6, 7 years later, you have that experience once more.
Yeah, we can relate.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Some mornings I just want to get back to it, and sometimes I go, right there, I'm going to take the high water mark out. All right, Mike Evans, he is recorded, but he's packed all the Hollywood dirt in here for us at 6:30. Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. Later on this very show, 9 a.m., Tommy Ryman will be joining us. He's at Acme very soon, a very funny comic. And at 8 a.m., we will be joined on the phone by both Soledad O'Brien and Rob Reiner, who are the co-hosts of a new podcast called Who Killed JFK? Rob Reiner, as in the guy. I've listened to the first 2 episodes, and it is fantastic. So I'm very interested to have them on and get their thoughts. I went into that pretty cynical, like, who killed JFK? Okay, great. I've heard all this information before. No, I haven't heard a lot of the information they're sharing. Or if I had, I forgot it all. So it's a pretty fascinating podcast. I'm looking very forward to speaking with them. And then at some point on the show, of course, we're going to give away some tickets to, a hot concert or two, because that's how we like to do it. We were talking about David Letterman's appearance on Colbert last night. Good to see Dave out on The Late Show. And I just had this thought. I remember when he had Paris Hilton on his show years ago after she'd had a DUI, and he kept asking her about the arrest and about the fact that she did a couple days in a jail cell. And he was going on, and you could tell he just wasn't thrilled to even have her on the show. Right. And at one point she said, I don't want to talk about my legal trouble anymore. And Letterman looked at her and he goes, well, see, this is where you and I are different, because that's all I want to talk about.
I remember that.
I remember watching that going, that guy's still, all those years in, I was like, man, that guy is still the best. Absolutely outstanding. When I was a college student, there was a spring break, 86 spring break in Daytona Beach, and The Late Show, when he was still on NBC, Letterman had a big thing down at the beach for spring break, and I, along with, half the people I knew in college, were all down there for a week, and a buddy of mine was hired, like, to be just a fill-in, just, to be on hand for whatever needed to be done. So Dave is down there with the show, and my buddy Scott from Cincinnati, he was just like, man, I'm going to go, like, run, I'll just be like a runner for them. That's really cool. They weren't even paying him, college kid, like, yeah, I don't need money. Just let me say I worked for Dave Letterman for the day. And I didn't see him the rest of the day. We got back to the dorm a week later, and I walked into his room. I go, man, how was that Letterman thing? And he held up a hand towel, a white hand towel, and it had blood all over it. And I go, what is that? He goes, this is Larry Bud Melman's blood. Awesome. He cut himself shaving, and I had to give him this towel, and so God. I took it. And he had a towel with Larry Bud Melman's blood. That's how big Letterman was.
Or how weird your friend was.
Well, that's the obvious other side of that equation for sure. All right, enough Letterman talk. Let's get to the Mike Evans Hollywood Report. What do you say?
Hey, give it up, give it up, give it up, up. Here is your report. Hey, everybody, it's me, Mike Evans, from Washington, D.C. Hope everybody's doing well.
World.
I got some TV news for you. Prince Harry will not watch the series The Crown.
Yeah,
at
right.
least not the episode that graphically reenacts the deadly automobile crash that killed his mother in that tunnel in France.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would you watch a TV show that graphically reenacted your mother's death? I don't blame him at all. On a happier note, Kevin James' third comedy special called Irregardless will air this winter on Prime. Look for this special to have a lot more bite and just as funny. More TV news. Nicole Kidman has announced a third season of her HBO hit series, Little Big Lies. Most likely the final season, and look for a whole lot of superstars doing cameos. How about some odds and ends? Last week it was announced for the fourth time, Jimmy Kimmel will host the Oscars. I mean, personally, I could not care less, but since he is going to host the Oscars, and I'm the Hollywood reporter, and we both worked at K-Rock, all right, I'll mention it. The biggest, baddest, fastest roller coaster is being built in Saudi Arabia. The coaster will go over a cliff, race 156 miles an hour, free fall from 442 feet. It's called Falcon's Flight. It's being built right now.
Fungus.
All I can say is good riddance. Former porn star, scumbag, and in my opinion, one of the most disgusting human beings to ever live, Ron Jeremy. Ron Jeremy has been in jail for 2 years, facing 31 sexual assault charges by 23 different women. By the way, these are just the latest charges against Jeremy. He's been charged with multiple sex crimes over the last 28 years. He hasn't been in court only because of his failing health. And this week, he will be released from jail to some unknown private residence because no hospital will take him, and he's that seriously sick. What I'm hearing is that Ron Jeremy will die sometime in the next week or so. This guy was a monster. Good riddance. Sports shorts. While Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh quietly took the 3-game suspension, is it true the NCAA is still investigating and another shoe could fall? And I can't wait for the Ohio State-Michigan game coming up on Saturday, the biggest college game of the year. Hey, I'll talk to you tomorrow, Thanksgiving Eve, from Washington, D.C. Mike Evans, see you.
That last?
Thanks for a gimpy knee. What did he say?
Thanksgiving Eve.
Oh, Thanksgiving Eve.
Open up your ears, Gorman.
Is that a thing,
Gimpy knee.
Thanksgiving Eve?
Listen,
Yeah, big day tomorrow.
Candace, my high-end hearing has been shot for 30 years, okay? I miss a lot. I was watching some of the Monday Night Football game last night with a friend at a bar. I didn't hear one word he said to me. It was just loud enough in there where I was like, you're talking, and I'm not making out a single word. Prince Harry's not going to watch The Crown. He doesn't want to see the Princess Diana death scene, which I do fully understand. But it's also got to be kind of weird to then also know, oh, this is the hit my grandma ordered on my mom. That's a weird one, don't you think?
That'd be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
Big sighting, something to talk about around the holidays.
Little Big Lies, by the way. Anyone see that? The Nicole Kidman vehicle. Is it good?
I saw the first season. It was very good. I didn't see it past that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was cool.
Looking for a new show. The families all together. Maybe want to try something out. You just never know. There's going to be that moment when we run out of things to talk about and we'll have to binge something.
You don't like The Crown?
I like The Crown.
Oh, yeah, I watched it all already.
I've seen every episode. I'm a fan of The Crown, and it's funny because I couldn't care less about the actual royal family, but the TV version I'm totally down for.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. No, I was really moved in season 1 when the dude the king died and she's suddenly the queen at 25. I mean, that was all very emotional. I'm like, I hate these people. Why do I care about this? But that's because it's Claire Foy and not Elizabeth. I guess that would make the difference. That's the line
Elizabeth
for me.
Fan, I get it.
Yeah,
No, just not.
Well, I don't know. I mean, a little bit to me, but whatever. That's just how I roll. Let's take a look back on this day in 1981. Jim McMahon, the partyinest quarterback who ever lived in our lifetime anyway, soon to be the number 1 draft choice for the Bears. He capped off his career at Brigham Young. In his final college game, he threw for 565 yards and 4 touchdowns. He set 70 NCAA passing marks while at BYU. He was easily the best Bears quarterback of my lifetime. 5 years later, he led those Bears to the Super Bowl title. And I know from a personal friend of mine, Keith Van Horn, offensive lineman for that team, told me the night before the Bears Super Bowl game against the Patriots, he and Jim McMahon, and one of the kickers were in a bar in the French Quarter as the sun was rising. Nice. They did not take the Patriots very seriously for a good reason. Jim McMahon was living it, boy. Let me tell you.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
As I mentioned an hour ago, the Rolling Stones have finally come clean and announced they are touring the United States and Canada, one date in Canada, in 2024. They just dropped their tour dates. I'll just cut right to the chase. They will not be playing in the Twin Cities. The closest gig I see would be Chicago on June 27th at Soldier Field. But this is an interesting one. They're doing, looks like 16 gigs, and the second gig listed Thursday, May the 2nd at Jazz Fest in New Orleans.
Ooh, sick. Let's go.
Oh, boy, that'd be a good one.
Come on, Steve, let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you two should go.
Jazz Fest is always worth going. Doesn't matter who's on the bill, but to see them at Jazz Fest, it's like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I do need to go. I did. Candace and I saw the new David Fincher film, and there's a great line in there where the guy goes, New Orleans, 1,000 restaurants with one menu.
Oh, this is in New Orleans. I thought it was in Utah. Isn't that the home of the Jazz? No?
Yeah, the jazz scene has been thriving there for 40 years now. It's fantastic. So the Stones, Houston, New Orleans, Glendale, Vegas, Seattle, a lot of the usual suspects, but again, not Minneapolis. But Candace, you saw the Stones in Minneapolis in 2021.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
It was pretty sweet.
I wish they would do, I don't know if it was like 6 years ago. They did that tour, and I saw it twice here and in Chicago, and they did the whole lottery system, which was awesome. So, like, you just buy tickets, and they $25 tickets or whatever, and then they put you wherever they want. And we got on the floor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you could either get really crappy seats or really awesome seats, and we got really awesome seats.
Man, they could put you wherever they want. Like, they could literally be like, you are in the Porta-Johns in the parking lot. Enjoy the show.
Yeah, but it's $25. You just want to go and try your luck.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. That's really cool. I was talking to a kid the other day. A guy came up to me and said, man, I listened to the show, and I grew up, I love classic rock. And he goes, man, I just wanted to share a story with you. And he went on to tell me about the fact that in 2007, he applied online for the lottery for the Led Zeppelin show in London. They had a website. They announced it. Led Zeppelin's going to reunite and play, and there's going to be a one show, and there's a lottery ticket for the 20,000 seats available. And this guy, who was a senior in high school back then, applied and got it and won. He was told, you have 2 tickets. And he goes, it was the highlight of my life, man. I was so excited. And he was telling me the story, and he couldn't afford to fly to London, of course. Didn't occur to him. But he got 2 tickets, so his parents, bought the tickets. And then he sold one of them on eBay, and that covered his flight and hotel, like the other ticket, right? And he was telling me this story, and he goes, man, it was just amazing. And he goes, did you ever see the DVD of that show? And I said, no. And he goes, oh, man, you got to see it. It was great. It was unbelievable. It was such a crazy night. And he just went on. He goes, I can't believe you never watched it. And then I finally said, well, I mean, I saw the show, too. I was there. And he goes, did you win the lottery, too? And then I felt bad because I was, no, I got Jimmy Page put me on the list. Yeah. And the guys, I mean, seriously, he was crestfallen. He was like,
just smack him across the face.
I know. I just thought, but I didn't want to lie to the guy. It was, I found myself.
Person.
Yeah, I felt like kind of a jerk. I would have been much better served if I had just maybe left a note later, said, hey, man, actually, I was there. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes leaving a note is better. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're saying.
I mean, sometimes you just need to leave a note. My favorite ever story My favorite ever note I've ever seen somebody leave on a windshield of another car is, "Hi, my name is Jack. I accidentally hit your car. Someone saw me, so I'm pretending to write down my details. Sorry."
Oh my God.
I said sorry.
That's fantastic. And the best part about it is he spelled the word right, R-I-G-H-T.
No,
That's what gets me. But I've left exactly one note on a windshield in my life. And it was, of course, because of a terrible parking job someone did at a Home Depot parking lot. And it was for a car that had, the stickers were free Tibet, meditate. It was just a series. It was one of those cars that had 27 stickers on it.
Coexist.
And every one of them was about, coexist, free Tibet. It was all about, it was Buddhist slash Earth Mama messaging across the board. And I wrote on my note in Sharpie on a full-size piece of paper, I wrote, "The Dalai effing Lama himself could have parked this car better than you."
Oh, that's great.
And the whole time, Rosemary's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, this makes me crazy. I was just having a moment. And then I was so proud of my note that I wanted to wait and watch them read it. And she's like, "I'm leaving. Drive away or I'm out of this car." So I didn't get to see the reaction. But that's the only time. Because and it's not that I don't want to leave a note. It's that I would hate to be caught leaving a note. That would be worse. Because, instead of being the guy who's going to go to your face and go, "Hey, dude, learn how to park. I'm leaving a note." It's so passive-aggressive.
I used to love to leave just nonsense notes, like "the tomato hat is from the future."
Are you serious? You would
see
do
them
that?
Yes. Because I'd love to just see them stare at it and shake their head and look around.
Yes. That's
Probably
great.
still bothers them to this day.
That's like that's like prank phone call. I mean, that's that's so great. It never occurred to me.
Yeah.
I had a buddy, Will, still have him, I guess. I haven't seen you in a few years, Will, if you're out there. Good morning. But he would pre-make notes saying, "Hey, sorry about your car. I don't have any insurance, but I feel really bad about it," and just leave it on random cars in the parking lot when he'd leave the bar. Yeah, cars he hadn't hit, by the way.
They're looking for damage.
Yeah, he just wants them out there looking for damage. And I'm like, and I said, "You don't ever stick around and watch that?" And he's like, No, I should stick around and watch the result one time. And he said he did then one time, watch that, and some guy stumbles out of the bar, walks up to his windshield, sees a note, pulls it out, throws it, gets in his car and leaves. And so he never left a note again after that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the person was just too dry. Should have called the cops on him.
Yeah,
I like this one. Here's one we cherry-picked offline. Someone left this note on their door with a $10 bill, I might add. "I had to siphon gas out of your car at 3 a.m. Gas stations were closed. Sorry for the inconvenience. Here's some cash. Thanks, random stranger."
Wow.
I know, isn't that great? I lived in a condo building in South Minneapolis for a number of years and had a very enthusiastic girlfriend at the time. She was a loud screamer, I think is what you would call it. And these were paper-thin walls, as it were. And I did receive a couple of notes in that short time that we dated. One, the funniest one was accused me of performing exorcisms out of my condo. I thought that was a nice touch. But Marilyn hung the other note, and I know it was her because I know her handwriting. She lived across the hall from me. That's how bad it was. Claimed that the lady in my apartment had to be faking it because no man is that good. So,
wow.
It
You
turns
guys
out she was.
The
watching
gauntlet
horror
was thrown
movies?
down.
Yeah, that was the same place I got a letter from, a little note on my door asking if I had changed my Wi-Fi password. I'm a single mother and can't afford Wi-Fi. Just sign that, yes. And I had changed my password, yeah.
Wow.
Shannon on the KQ Facebook page said that she received a gallon-size bag full of hot dogs on her front porch, and on the bag it said, "You've been wienered."
No.
Well,
What?
Tony?
Creepy, right?
all right.
Yeah, that's got Lee written all over it.
Wienered.
Wienered. I love that word.
She'd keep the wieners.
Oh, I'll ask. I'll respond.
Wow, getting wienered. You know what's weird? We got wienered a couple of years ago. I got up one morning to walk out the front door of the house, and my front yard, there's a dozen or maybe 15 foot-long hot dogs on wooden skewers sticking up out of the ground.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Oh, did I? Yeah, and I took one look at it and immediately thought it was some sort of like satanic ritual had been going down overnight.
Right.
And it was really, really strange. And this coincided with a time that a person we know who was going through a significant mental health crisis. I'm laughing now because you can in hindsight. A kid that had been a friend of my son's was going through some weirdness and had thrown a jar of salsa and some eggs on my son's car. And then all of a sudden, all these hot dogs show up. And I'm like, hey, man. And so we go right back like, hey, dude, we're not going to tell you again. You need to stay away from the house and stop putting hot dogs on skewers. And, of course, the kid was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we didn't believe it. And it was just one of those things we chalked it up to. And I literally thought maybe the hot dogs had been poisoned or something. Like maybe he's trying to get my dog sick. I was really concerned about it. Months later, a different friend of my son's, a girl, just a buddy of his, said, hey, you never mentioned the hot dogs. And he's like, what? And she goes, oh, that was a thing. It was a TikTok trend. Yeah. Didn't you have a bunch of hot dogs in your yard? We did that to you one night. And it was just this, oh, okay. So I falsely accused a guy who was going through a crisis of hot dogging my yard. My bad. But hey, these things happen.
You're just a little behind the curve on some of those online challenges. Candace made a brilliant observation earlier in the last hour. She said, sometimes you have to be creepy to be funny. I love that line.
Sure.
I wonder if you would think this is funny. Candace, if you received this on your door, would you be willing to talk to me in person, like in private? It's nothing serious. Just want to ask you a couple of questions. It's no big deal. Your neighbor.
Oh, my God.
Did you go knock on that door?
Yep.
You would, wouldn't you? Yeah, I know you would. That's why
I would just eat me alive.
We worry.
The 3 times he mentions it's no big deal tells me it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Run for the hills.
Depends how hot he is. And also, my neighbors are very sweet, old.
Yeah.
Nice
That
men.
is nice, yeah.
So.
Just surrounded by silver foxes is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's my demographic.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
by the way, how about the fact that Candace Wheeler just said that just depends on how hot he is, and we just let that sit there, like no one even mentioned it. Like basically, if you want, that Candace has very high standards. The hotter you are, the more willing she is to engage in your shenanigans, whatever they may be.
Now we brought up the Colbert Show. David Letterman on that last night. Colbert said something once years ago. He said the amount of crazy that you're willing to put up is directly related to how hot they are. So we've all lowered our standards a little bit for hot, haven't we? We've learned a lesson or two along the way.
Sure we have.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
Tuesday, November the 21st. It is the year 2023, and that means tomorrow is the 60th anniversary of the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. 60 years on, and there are still so many unanswered questions. Rob Reiner, who I imagine needs no setup, introduction, and Soledad O'Brien, a journalist who also really needs no introduction, have a great new podcast, the two of them together, and it's called, pretty directly, Who Killed JFK?
I did it.
Okay, so, well, you blew the. Come on, man.
Sorry.
I've listened to over the weekend. I listened to the first 2 episodes, which have posted, and it is absolutely astounding the timeline of things. Just getting the story of we all know what happened on November 22nd. 1963, and then the Warren Commission a couple years later. The Zapruder film wasn't seen until 1975 by the American public. I didn't know there was a 12-year lag, and the fact that it was first shown on a nightly talk show. And the comedian Dick Gregory played a large part in getting people interested in the story and the conspiracy theories and cover-ups and et cetera, et cetera. There's so much information that, I was 2 years. This happened 2 years before I was born, but I grew up aware of this situation, of course. But listening to this podcast as they're laying it all down, the timeline makes so much more sense, and it's so confounding. It's absolutely worth everybody's time. And right now on the horn, Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, our pleasure.
I have heard the first 2 episodes this weekend. I've been talking about it ever since. Rob, I got to say, I was really struck your emotional connection to this story. You were a teenager at the time, and this isn't a story in a history book to you. It's still a very visceral moment in time, isn't it?
It is, and for everybody who was alive at that time, Soledad was, I think, -3 at that time. But for those of us who were alive, it was a collective national traumatic experience. Everybody felt it. We all remember exactly where we were when we heard. And I was in physics class, as I said, and the teacher said, I've got some terrible news. He sent us all home, and we watched nonstop from that point on. The entire country watched, and I actually watched Lee Harvey Oswald get murdered on national television by Jack Ruby. So it's something that never leaves you. It's, like I say, a trauma that just never leaves you.
Sure. Soledad, as Rob just said, you like me, were still a few years away from hitting the scene. Did you approach this project with any, I don't want to say cynicism, but I put the first episode on and I thought, okay, I think I kind of know the story. And I was, of course, immediately dispossessed of that notion. Did you walk into it? Are you surprised at how much you maybe had wrong?
Yeah, I hadn't learned much about it, right? We were just sort of told, single shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, let's move on. And so it was fascinating to me, sort of Rob's obsession, but a lot of people's obsession. And I think also the deep disappointment when you realize that your government has been lying to you. I was, as my mother would have said, in the mind of God back then, 3 years later I'd be born. But I think trying to understand why people have been so obsessed, why some of the fallout from some of these commissions is actual just completely absurd, and the disappointment and disheartening way in which people lost their faith in government was really my into this project. So when Rob suggested it, I was so happy to take part. And every Wednesday when we drop an episode, we try to take it a little bit further, stringing lots of the evidence together and also kind of looking at what America as a whole's reaction was.
And yeah, so far expertly done. I was also struck by that. We're so used to conspiracy theories now and so used to a jaded view of our government. But at this time, and Rob, you can speak to this, it really was sort of it was the first time I think a lot of other people, a lot of otherwise patriotic, loyal, believing people were forced to face. This was just a whole lot of nonsense in the follow-up, wasn't it?
It was. And like you say, it was the loss of innocence because, after the Second World War, we won. We were the good guys. We beat fascism. And so we trusted our government. We believed what they said to us was true. And then when the Warren Commission report came out, it was like, whoa, this makes absolutely no sense. None of this makes sense. And then we started questioning the government. As Soledad pointed out, I think this was the beginning of a great divide that happened in our country where we started questioning things, and it's driven us very far apart from each other, and it continues. So I've always said that, if we're going to have a healthy democracy, it has to be based and founded on truth. And so this truth has to be adjudicated. We have to understand it. And then we can, as Soledad points out in the documentary, for many people of color and people, Native Americans, they always had distrust, and there was always problems with the government. But this really threw threw this thing wide open for everyone, so that we all have to come to grips with all of the untruths that we've been telling the public, and then we can build a very healthy democracy. And right now, democracy, ours, is threatened, and we're not going to have a healthy one unless it's based on a foundation of truth.
Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien are with us on the KQ Morning Show. Their new podcast, Who Killed JFK? It's fantastic. 60 years tomorrow, and we still have more questions. I should say we probably have more questions than ever. And again, Rob, I thought I knew a lot about this case. I somehow missed the fact a House Select Committee, in fact, in the 70s, did declare there was a conspiracy.
Yes. And what's interesting about all the, so you have two government conclusions that are diametrically opposed. But what's interesting about this is that over the 60 years, little bits and pieces of truths have come out, and they've come out years apart. So unless you're following this and putting these pieces together, you might miss it. You might say, oh, well, that's interesting. That happened. But what we try to do with the podcast is take all of those revelations over the period of 60 years and put it together in one place and lay it all out for the public to understand, to tell it like a story that's unfolded over 60 years.
And I think for people who both are obsessed with it and people who have never thought about it, it's a really interesting telling of what happened and also all the craziness that happened around it.
You know what? I will echo that. It truly is for someone who's already spent time or knows nothing. I think they'll get a lot out of this. Rob, I can't help but notice over the last 60 years, you've kind of been busy, my man. But this is but this has always been you've never. I mean, just looking at a list here. Hey, you got a couple projects done. Good for you. But you've never let this one drop, I guess. This has always been, if not on the front burner, at least on the side burner.
It has. And like I say, I've done so much reading about it. I've been to Dealey Plaza. I've talked to forensic experts and CIA agents and so on. But like I say, whenever a new revelation comes out, then I dive back in and I say, okay, how does this fit into the overall picture? So, yes, I've been in and out of looking at this for 60 years.
Soledad, have you been to Dealey Plaza?
I have not been to Dealey Plaza, and now, I just feel like I would question everything about this. I started thinking like, yeah, I learned about this. I kind of know what happened, to thinking, I have no idea. So I would love to go.
It's interesting. When you go, the first time I went there, it's way smaller than you think because such a huge event occurred there. You think it's just this big, grand place. It's very small, and when you study it, you walk around it, you can say, oh, I see how this could never have happened the way it's described in the Warren Commission.
That's exactly where I was going. The first time I ever went to Dallas, I went and I stood there and I kept thinking. I asked someone, "What did it used to look like?" And he said, "This is what it looks like." And I was like, "Wait, there's no way.
It's exactly the same.
This makes no sense whatsoever." How many episodes are we going to get from this podcast?
10 episodes and then 2 bonus episodes. We have so much material, and it is all riveting that we wanted to make sure that everybody had access to all the same information, same interviews that we were having the chance to do.
Well,
it's a complicated story, so it takes that many episodes to tell, and we try to tell it in a way, like you said, for people who don't have very much information about it, to gain information, and for those who do know about it, I think even they will say, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that.
Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien, for very different reasons. I'm a longtime fan of both of your work. Thank you so much for everything, literally, over the years. And for this podcast, it's fantastic. All the best.
Thank you for having us.
You got it. See ya. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. We can talk about JFK. But as I'm listening to Rob Reiner speak, I'm going Spinal Tap, Princess Bride,
right? Meathead,
the Body, which became Stand By Me, Meathead, All in the Family. I mean, and that's right. His dad's Carl Reiner. Like my dad worked in the bowling industry. His dad's Carl Reiner.
He's such a distinct voice too.
What an amazing run he's had. And this, but to get back to this, it's interesting. Like he makes the point in the first episode. Everybody remembers, of us on this show, all different ages at the time, but we all remember 9/11, right? We all remember exactly where we were when we heard, but we didn't all hear at the same time. The difference, I think, with the JFK thing was there wasn't was it a private plane? Was it a big plane? It was simply the president's been assassinated. That was the word that just boom, in one shot, most of America got at the same moment. And it wasn't, he's been shot, is he going to be okay? There were people that were aware he'd been shot. But for the vast majority of Americans, the first piece of information they got, all within a few minutes of each other, literally, and all around the world, was that he was gone. And that is boy, talk about a hammer drop and what that did to the collective consciousness. And I'll say it again. I listen to a lot of podcasts for a few minutes. You know, I'm always, when I get in the car, I love putting on new podcasts. I love hearing different approaches to things. But the ones that keep me through the whole first, second, third episode, not that many, honestly. And I finished the second episode in the car Saturday, and I was like, oh, come on, get to the next one. I mean, it's really worth your time. No matter what you think you know or what you actually do know, I can't recommend anything higher.
You know, my daughter got me into some of those true crime podcasts. Minnesota, #1, by the way, in the nation for true crime podcast listening. And so
that's why we moved here. My wife is really a big fan of true crime, and she said, it's #1 state. We got to go.
Yeah, got to go, got to live here, got to immerse yourself in it. I listened to a couple of them and then gave up on it, and it's because there's no resolution. And this one, listen, we've been down the JFK rabbit hole a million times. I'm sure this is riveting and fascinating, and there's new information, but guess what? When you're all done, you're not going to know who killed. You'll have some ideas, you'll have some theories, but there's no resolution. We're not going to put this one to bed. I would like to put this one to bed. Wouldn't it be nice to know?
Well, kind of like Twin Peaks. It really didn't matter who killed Laura Palmer. At the end of the day, did it really?
Sucked.
As soon as they announced who killed Laura Palmer, the show sucked. But I think the case in this one, as to what Reiner was just saying, this more speaks to, it certainly opens up the question of, wait, hold on. If the government is already, if they're doing this and if they're keeping information quiet for whatever reason, that's a pretty big, that's a serious canary in the coal mine for the state of democracy. I mean, he goes pretty big picture on that stuff, but along the way, just as a guy, like I said, I think I know a lot about this, but it just really hit me, the timeline and the chronology of when all these events that you know about, the Warren Commission, the Zapruder film, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to hear them in the linear timeline of how they happened and when specifically, and the distance between certain events, absolutely captivating. And I don't think they're going to come up and say, actually, it was Joe Schlabotnik from Des Moines. He pulled the trigger. That's not going to be our result, but it's a fascinating listen, to be sure.
Right, and the forensics too, part of that equation.
Sure. Oh, they covered that quite a bit. So the History Channel last weekend just released a 3-part series on who killed JFK. That's the name of it, Who Killed JFK, for the 60th anniversary as well. And from a historical perspective, always fascinating.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say, I do want to I'll put a cap on that. I know nothing about rifles. I mean, just forget it. I mean, I know what they look like. But I did go to Dealey Plaza. I've been there a couple times, and the first time I went, I stood right there. And I know nothing about rifles, but I have gone hunting. I mean, I've held rifles. I say I know nothing as in compared to someone who deals with them on a regular basis. But it's just that gut, that blink moment where I stood there and I looked up at the window and I looked at where the car was, and I thought about what I know about a bolt action rifle, and I literally just went, no chance in hell that's what happened. And so that's just one guy who's admittedly ignorant about a lot of the details. But anyway, that said, boy, this is endlessly fascinating now for 60 years tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we could keep talking about it. Again, one of those things they did years ago, brought in a bunch of special forces snipers, eat, live, breathe it. They file down the little barbs on the tip of the bullet.
Right.
So they can make a 1,500-yard shot, and they're leading someone by, or something, a target by, 200 yards. They couldn't duplicate the shot. So it's either just a freak thing, that and, well, see, here we go.
Here we go. There we go.
Back to neighborhood notes. Have you ever received a strange or obscene note on your
Sorry,
doorstep?
I shot your president.
Yeah,
That's a neighborhood note.
I killed JFK. Shh, don't tell anyone. Have you ever left one? Have you ever received one? We were talking about that earlier this morning. I like this one from Steve on the KQRS Facebook page. The way you pulled in makes me wish your dad would have pulled out. Learn how to park. These are cards that he carries. Steve, he's one of ours. He carries these around with him. All right, have you ever left one? Have you ever received a note on your car, apartment door, whatever? 651-989-ROCK. We'd love to hear from you this morning on the talk and text line. That's coming at 8:30. Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. The Rolling Stones announced tour dates earlier this morning. They're going out 16 shows in the U.S., 15 in the U.S., and 1 in Vancouver. That's how you get to call it a North American tour. You just do 1 in Canada, and then you say North America. That's perfect how that works. The other band that people have been waiting to hear about is AC/DC, and I just saw this during the break. The mayor of Munich, Germany, whose name is Dieter Reiter. Dieter Reiter. Dieter, it's D-I-E-T-E-R, Dieter Reiter, R-E-I-T-E-R. So Dieter Reiter was talking with a reporter and just let it slip out accidentally that AC/DC will be performing at Munich's Olympic Stadium on June 12th, 2024. And then he was told, hey, man, you're not supposed to announce that. And his quote is, I didn't know it was supposed to be a secret. Yeah, these things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday it happened on this show.
That's right. It sure did. Yeah, AC/DC, one of the biggest bands of all time, just plotting a tour, trying to keep things under the windshield, as they say, or under the hood. And then the mayor of a major city in Europe goes, oh, yeah, they're coming. Not only does he say they're coming, he's like, it'll be the Olympic Stadium. It'll be at June 12th. They plan to open with Thunderstruck. I mean, what else do you want to say, bud? You give the venue, the date. Angus would be wearing actually a brown schoolboy uniform as opposed to black.
Well, he just stole someone else's thunder, right?
I'll tell you what, man. It's kind of rough. Kind of rough right there. Someone needs to slide that man a note and say, keep your mouth zipped, dude. Come on, Dieter. But, you know, hey, we were talking about notes earlier in the show. Notes that we have left or have been left for us by people. Sometimes, you know, Zep, sometimes people don't want to just get in your face and be all confrontational, so they leave you a note, you know? Not necessarily the way I roll. I've left one note in my life, and I thought it was a funny note, but I've only been I've thought about writing notes many times. I've been like, oh, if I just had a pen and a piece of paper here. But you know, that's how that goes.
It works, doesn't it? I mean, because, listen, confrontation is unpredictable, gets the adrenaline going. You don't even know how you're going to react in a confrontation because you don't know what the other person's reaction is going to be, and we just don't get ourselves into that. So with a note, we get to say what we want to say exactly how we want to say it, and then we can go imagine that it really got to them. It either changed their lives or it just really, you know, it really stuck it to them. So it you know, it lets us get our thing out the way we want to get it out and then fantasize that it worked. I love what Paul Hurley has to say. My friend's dad said on a note, I'm only leaving this because someone saw me hit your car.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one.
Honesty there, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's always the whole, you just put down you just make up a name and number too. You know, you can always do that. Right. Candace, do we have a caller?
Chris from Newport.
Chris, good morning.
Hey, I've used my name instead of my nickname because the last time I called you gave me shit about my nickname being Cruiser.
Okay, easy on work in the morning show blue,
Get him,
brother.
Chris. Get him.
Jeez. Cruiser, that's Cruiser.
Okay. New nickname was Potty Mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, anyways, it has to do with construction cones.
Okay.
My buddies were out drinking one night. I wasn't with them, and they go by some construction zone and see all these orange cones. They figure, you know what's really funny? Let's go take a bunch of them and put them around Chris's car. Well, they kind of chickened out and just took one of them and put it on top of my car. So when I got up the next day to look outside, they had their opinion of me. It was like a big dunce cap.
You are a madman.
I go to school with an orange cone in my car going, what's this all about? And I said, oh, that's what you think about me, huh? Just because they didn't go out drinking?
Okay. Well, you know.
Take that.
It says it all, really. That story that says it all. I don't have anything to add to it. Cruiser Chris, thank you for the call, brother.
Yeah, what are friends for, huh?
That's exactly right. I thank you for the call, brother. I saw another note online. Someone said parked in a place they weren't supposed to park, and they left the note. Sorry, can we disconnect that noise? Sorry, don't ticket me. I have to go poo. That's when you leave a note. You leave a note on your own car in that one.
Right.
I've seen cars that have notes. I've pulled up next to a parked car where a dog was in the car, and there's a note that says, "It's okay. The car is on with full air conditioning. He's fine." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I get it. That makes sense." Because, the first thing you think when you see a dog in a car with the windows up is, I'm about to break a window open.
Mm-hmm. At least they're aware of it.
And then I also saw one that was obviously someone with just a sense of humor. There's a dude sitting in a car with a sign that says, "I'm shopping. He's fine. He has a smartphone to check Twitter with," or whatever. It was a note about her husband being left behind in the car. But Candace, you're not a note writer and leaver, are you?
No, not really. In high school, we used to have notebooks that we would pass around, kind of different because we were intentionally giving them to each other,
Okay.
But it was full-on notebooks it was like me and Dana's notebook, me and Janie's notebook.
What does that even mean? What, like you'd write notes to each other?
Yeah, and then you'd pass the notebook to each other throughout the day, yeah.
Okay. So what would now just be a text exchange was a notebook exchange.
Good times.
Man, Pilgrim
Simpler
days. That's like covered wagon days right there.
Yeah.
There was a guy at the Southdale Mall, an older gentleman who was sitting in like a lounge chair by himself, and he was totally asleep, and there was a Post-it note on his chest that said, "Don't wake."
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Do we have any text messages, Tony?
Yeah, this is cute. Jenna from Roseville said she found a note on her vehicle. It said, "Love your outfit. Love your hair. Let's spend some time together. Get in touch. Call or text." But no number or address or anything. Forgot that detail.
Yeah.
That's
pretty good.
Darren writes, "Dear neighbor, as entertaining as the conversation was last night between you and a girl about who gave you herpes, I would be grateful if you could lower your voices and be quiet after 11 p.m. on weekdays. The walls are thin, and I'd love to get some sleep. Thank you." In parentheses. And I promise not to tell anyone about your apparent STD history.
Oh.
Elaborate.
Yeah, got to keep a lid on that sort of thing. I don't keep up with a lot of the new trends in the world, but I do want to mention this one. I saw this story yesterday. Are you guys familiar with rage rooms?
No.
Yeah, I was just reading about that the other day.
It's not like a safety room, right? Like one of those, what do they call them if you go in there and the panic room?
No, it's not. It's not a panic room at all. It's a rage room is a place where you can go. Mm-hmm. You pay money to enter a room where you then pick up a sledgehammer or a baseball bat or a crowbar and you just destroy things. Yeah. They place teacups, big screen TVs, printers. It's about relieving stress. Or admitting to the universe you've got some serious issues. And you go in there, you pay money, and you just beat the living snot out of stuff to work it out. And so these things are, there are rage rooms. I don't know if there's one in the Twin Cities, but there's a lot of them across America. And a whole lot of rage room employees are asking, specifically having to post notes. Speaking of leaving notes, they're posting signs that say, "Hey, folks, we need you to keep your clothes on when in the rage room."
Well, that's how I express my rage. I've nicknamed my junk Rage.
Yeah,
and so
apparently people, one guy in Georgia says, "I see people go in there, incredibly intense makeout sessions. A couple will walk in, they get the blood flowing, they break a bunch of crap, and then they just get it on, apparently." Yeah. And so there's an idea that when you're doing something that's not allowed, like you smashed a TV or you broke a set of china, then it uncorks the whole idea of, I just want to be bad. And then you see your partner and you're like, let's get bad in here together. The destruction increases blood flow to all the parts of the body, and the adrenaline boost, of course, increases the urges as well. And so that's kind of a funny thing, but I'm just blown away that I've never heard of a rage room. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there was a time in my life when if I just walked into one unknowingly, I probably could have used it. But there's something about booking time, like going to a website, booking time. Yeah, I think. Let's see, Saturday at 11:15. Yeah, Saturday 11:15 is good. What are you supposed to hold on to your rage until then? You just shelve it and then you can bring it back up? I don't know. The whole thing's a little confusing to me.
It's like years ago they had scream therapy. That was kind of trendy.
Right. Everyone would just scream. They would just get in there and scream. But you're right. It seems a little bit contrived, doesn't it? It has to be in the moment, I think. Maybe there's some people out there with demolition businesses. If you want to get rid of your rage, come on in. We'll put you on the clock. Make a couple of bucks an hour. Break some stuff. I get it. It's fun to break things, but is it releasing the rage that you have inside you? That might be a little deeper. You might want to seek out some real therapy. Otherwise,
well, if you're gonna put a TV up there and give me a sledgehammer, at least have the decency to put a certain person's face on that television.
Hey,
Candace, do we have another caller?
Yes, Kate from Lakeville.
Kate, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Oh, we're great. What do you got for us, Kate?
So I went to the Rage Room in Savage.
I like it.
It's on County Road 42. It's kind of a funny story. My husband and I, there's a Thai restaurant right across the street, and we were looking, and I'm like, what the H is that,
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, we went over there. I did have a picture of somebody I really didn't like. It was taped to a bunch of glass bottles, and I smashed the stuff out of it. It was great.
Wow.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. Wow. What did you smash those bottles with? What was your implement?
My implement, I'm just a weak girl. It was a baseball bat, but it did the trick, man.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
No.
Now, do you feel less rage towards this person?
I do. Yeah,
All right.
I did. I mean, I had rage after, but I'll probably go back.
It sounds like, it just sounds like, throwing axes and drinking beer. That's kind of a trendy thing to do. They've got a couple of axe bars around town. Can you drink while you do it?
Lost you there, Kate.
Yeah.
What was that answer?
It was maybe.
All right. Well, that's awesome, Kate. Thanks for the call. Glad to know that that there is such a place in the Twin Cities. Where'd you say it was? In Savage.
In Savage. Texters are saying it's called the Wreck-It Rage Room.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, don't cross Kate. That we learned that today. And if you do, hopefully she remembers to hit your picture and not you. That's awesome.
Yeah, you know what I want to do is all that stuff that you might put into a garage sale, trying to get rid of all your old crap. I'd like to take it down to the Rage Room. Can I bring in my own stuff and then just smash it to bits,
Yeah, no kidding.
Come full circle with that thing I paid way too much for, that exercise piece of equipment that I never ended up using. Just take it in there and beat it to hell. I would get some exercise finally out of it.
That's a great idea, though. Like, if you could, that's awesome. Like, destroy the crap you're sick of storing, basically, and then you're killing a lot of birds with one stone. I'm totally down for that. That's great. I mentioned earlier in the show that David Letterman was on The Late Show last night with Stephen Colbert, his former show. Letterman making his first appearance in the Ed Sullivan Theater, and I said, in 4 or 5 years since he left? How about more than 8 years? Oops.
Oh.
Yeah, I just saw that. First time in more than 8 years since he's been there. David Letterman, a man who made me laugh on the television for years. And with that in mind, how about we hang out with another guy who's really funny on television, a semifinalist, in fact, on Last Comic Standing back in the day. Tommy Ryman is at Acme this weekend, and he's joining us on the KQ Morning Show. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning.
So you are going to be at Acme this weekend. You've got a handful of shows tomorrow night, 8 p.m., and then 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. So tomorrow's the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination. Are you going to sit here and tell me this is just a coincidence?
No, I have nothing to do with that. I'm positive. I swear.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Totally.
Where were you 60 years ago on November 22nd, 1963?
To be honest, I wasn't even alive. All
right. Okay.
Only 40, so it's definitely was not me. But we'll figure it out at my show at Acme on that Wednesday night. We'll get to the bottom of that.
I appreciate that. You're doing your nation a service by solving this once and for all. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
So you're a Minnesota guy, and I read that you grew up playing clarinet. What's the latest with the woodwind? Do you still play?
I do not still play the clarinet. It is in the closet though. I can
Ooh,
whenever
bring
I'm
it out.
ready. I can, but I broke my clarinet, so I wasn't. It's not in real playable condition because I was wanted to be a rock star, and I thought that's what you got to do. So one time I was playing the clarinet, and I wanted to add spicy dance moves to my practice. And this wasn't when I was like little. I was like 16. I was like, let's add dance moves.
Sure.
And I was spinning in a circle real fast.
Yeah.
And I learned if you spin fast enough, clarinet's built in 5 pieces, so the bottom portion will just fly off and smash against your wall.
Really?
Yeah, and then you have to talk to your parents because they have questions when they come home and there's shards of clarinet all over the floor.
Last I checked, clarinets don't grow on trees, Tommy.
No, but mine was like it was definitely used. This wasn't like a high-end wood clarinet. It was plastic.
That's a recorder.
A flutophone, excuse me.
Yeah. But,
so that was the end of your musical career right there. You did yourself in at 16, huh?
Yeah. Well, they did glue it together,
Mm-hmm.
and then I made it through one more year, and then I walked away from the clarinet.
So you were basically an electric guitarist, but that you just didn't know it, is what you're telling me.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like when they smash their guitar. Normally they'll bring another guitar out where I just had the one.
Oh, so you didn't have a tech. You didn't have a crew guy off to the side in your basement to hand you another one.
Yeah, just bring in sweet stuff. But
yeah. Live and learn, I guess. Live and learn.
Exactly.
Yeah, break the gear. Always have a backup on hand. Tommy Ryman's at Acme tomorrow night and both Friday and Saturday night. 1 show tomorrow, 2 shows on the weekend. So how old were you? Was there a connection between my clarinet's broken and maybe I'll start telling jokes now?
Well, there was a gap between 16. I started doing stand-up when I was like 22.
Okay.
But right here in Minneapolis, my home club, Acme, was where I first set foot on stage. And then I told him, I was like, I'm done with the clarinet. I'm ready to perform stand-up comedy jokes. And Lewis Lee was like, that's good. And
that's good.
That was history.
It's good that you're done with the clarinet, and it's good that you're ready to tell jokes. He probably approved of both of those statements.
Yeah, and it's been a blast.
Yeah, I imagine it has. So did you grow up in the Twin Cities or just a little out? Where in Minnesota are you from?
I grew up in the Twin Cities. I grew up in Southwest Minneapolis and in Edina, Minnesota. My parents were split, so I bounced between those 2 places. I lived in L.A. for 5 years and then moved back here in the pandemic. But Minnesota's where I've spent most of my time.
Where do you live now, Tommy?
I live in Richfield, Minnesota now.
Oh, we should have known.
It's so exciting.
What's the best thing about Richfield, Tommy?
Oh, I don't know, Candace. I would say the water, I think, is that's what.
Good.
I'm actually,
well, I can see the 2 of you have prepped for the interview. Candace loves that Richfield water, Tommy.
So
I appreciate you playing along.
I didn't even know how good it was until she started talking about it. To be honest, I didn't even buy the house for that reason. Like I was excited about other stuff, but it's been a real benefit.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear you say that, because if you said I bought a house for the water, there would have been a whole host of issues I would have assumed were at play here. Yeah. I'm glad to know you bought a sensible house first and then just recognized the bonus, which is really, really tasty Richfield water.
Yeah. Buying a house for the water sounds like a post-apocalyptic, like in the year 2050, like this house has got water. We got one.
Oh, man, the 2050s, the apocalypse? Crap.
I guess that's close. I got to move 2085.
There you go. Yeah, get it way beyond. There's a chance I'll still be here in 2050, and I'd really like to just be golfing if that's the case.
Okay, yeah, I'll move it. I apologize.
Tommy Ryman, you're at Acme Comedy Club. You said that's the first place you ever went up and publicly told jokes. That's a pretty heady place to start, man.
Yeah, but I didn't even realize it at the time how important and big a club Acme was at the time. Because my sister had been going to the open mics there, and she was like, "You should tell your little stories." And so,
an older sister, obviously.
Yeah, my older sister.
An older sister is the person who will say your little stories.
Yeah, no, she's super supportive.
Yeah,
but yeah, she was like, "Do your skits, get up there, you're funny." So
that's fantastic. So, yeah. But I mean, it's helpful not to know. I think early on in a career or in a pursuit, like if you had understood the legacy of that room, it probably would have been intimidating.
Yeah, I think the pressure would have been up, and but yeah, I was just kind of stumbling into it. But I did the very first time I performed, it went well, but I didn't tell any like coworkers or anything, and then I told everybody. I was like, I do stand-up now. And then I really bombed the second time. So there's still people in my life that are like, you still do this? Well, they saw that performance.
That's a common story. I've heard that from a lot of comics. Like the first couple 3 gigs or maybe just the first one, you really hit it. And then you make the mistake of thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. And then, of course, then reality strikes and you just bomb like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. So I've had trouble convincing one guy named Peter that I still am a professional comedian because he's goes all the way back to that story.
If you want to give Peter's number to Candace, she'll straighten him out after the show.
Sure will.
Be like, he's doing great. He lives in Richfield. He's drinking the best water in the Twin Cities. He's crushed it. He was on Last Comic Standing. He made it.
Let's talk about Last Comic Standing. How did that come about? Was that something you actively pursued, or did you get a phone call? What's the story?
Well, that was season 8. I had applied for this show multiple times, all the way back to like season whenever Josh Blue one was the first time that's when you stood in line. But season 8, I got a call from their producers, and they actually flew you out to LA because I was still living in Minnesota, and then moved on from that. Then it was the top 100 people. So I flew, then they taped, and then I got all the way to the semifinals. So I kept flying back and forth from LA. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, fun, but was it also kind of, I mean, that's a tough thing. Suddenly you're in front of TV cameras and crowds and there's judges. I mean, it's a very different thing than telling your little stories in your hometown comedy club.
Right, exactly. No, there was a little more pressure, but the producers Wanda Sykes was one of the producers, and they said like this season they're just gonna really showcase the comics. So I knew they weren't gonna do anything weird or try to make you look awkward. And then I had been on a show on Nickelodeon the year before, and got edited out. So I was just convinced I wouldn't even be on the show.
Right.
And then so I was just excited when it aired, and I was like, oh, I'm there. They put me on.
Yeah. Tommy Ryman's at Acme tomorrow night, Wednesday the 22nd at 8 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 2 shows, 7 and 9:30. So you grew up in Edina. What kind of music were you into when you were breaking clarinets and being a rocker with the clarinet? Were you listening to rock music? Was that your thing, or were you a hip-hop kid?
I was a big REM fan. Was
my
band.
Attaboy.
Yeah. And then I was also like a weird soundtrack kid because I liked it because it was like already a mix, so you just got a bunch of music. So I had like the Dazed and Confused soundtrack was one of my favorites.
Sure.
The Titanic soundtrack, that was really up there. That was a big one.
Is that just various versions of one song? I only know of one from that movie.
I mean, yeah, Celine Dion's got the main one, and then yeah, mostly it's just instrumental.
Yeah, sure.
Irish
now you wouldn't listen to that with like candlelight or anything, would you?
No.
Just put it on and.
No, I actually wasn't allowed to have candles when I was a kid because my sister bought me a candle once, and I left it lit, and I left the house. Luckily, no one got hurt. But my dad's an insurance salesman, so he took my candle away and then wrote a letter of what possibly could have happened.
Sure.
And it was horrifying.
Yeah, the one guy on earth who's going to know what might go wrong with a candle left unattended would be the insurance dude.
Yeah, he was like, your stepmom's in the hospital. Like, it was this hypothetical thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then he told me I got my candle back when I'm 30, and he actually gave it back to me 15 years later. and I just threw it in the garbage. I was like, these kill people. It's terrifying.
You don't have to teach me that lesson twice, old man.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Tommy Ryman at the Acme Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, Friday and Saturday, both 7 and 9:30. Before we cut you loose, you got any beefs? You got anything you want to get off your chest? You feeling good? What's happening?
I'm feeling good. I think
good.
I put a rage room in my house.
I was gonna ask. This is a new thing for me, and we were just discussing this. Are you hip to the rage room thing?
I've never done one, but my hobby, I like to build Legos. And so I think I could just smash them too, which is fun because then you can just put them back together. So
sure.
I feel like I have the combination. But yeah,
I thought you were going to say I build Legos, so I'm sitting on a lot of rage. But that's just me writing stories that probably aren't true. Right. I apologize for that assumption.
No, that would be painful to sit on a lot of Legos. So.
Sure, it would. Yeah, hell, I step on one, and that shark meme comes right to mind every time.
I love that meme.
Tommy Ryman, it is a pleasure to chat with you, sir.
Thank you.
You got it. Have a great weekend at Acme. Wednesday night, Friday, and Saturday night. 5 shows in total. Very good.
Excellent.
Go to the Acme. Have a good time with local boy. Local boy does good. Tommy Ryman. Right on. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. We're just about out of here for the day. Let me recap, if you will. Tommy Ryman is at Acme tomorrow night and Friday and Saturday night. He's a funny dude, and he loves that Richfield water.
Mm-hmm. That's how you know he's a good guy.
Because he loves that Richfield water.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song in there somewhere. Earlier in the show, we spoke with Rob Reiner, he of Everything Great, and Soledad O'Brien, a journalist of some renown. They have a new podcast called Who Killed JFK. They phoned in to discuss tomorrow being the 60th anniversary of the assassination of JFK. And Reiner, in the podcast, calls it America's Greatest Unsolved Murder, which is exactly what that is. That podcast is really worthy of your time. The podcast for this very show, the KQ Morning Show, is available whenever you want. Go to the App Store, download 92 KQRS, and you can listen at your leisure in case you can't be with us live, as the case may be. So we're making it easy for you. Here's something that I just came across, and I've traveled a lot. I've spent a lot of time in hotels in my life, and this has never occurred to me, and now I'm kind of getting creeped out. Ready for this? Mm-hmm. If you're traveling, don't ever put your suitcase on the bed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or yourself.
That's very true. I'm a suitcase on the bed guy. Been doing it that way for years. If I'm going to be there for more than a day, if I have to take stuff out of the suitcase, I never put it on that little weird thing you're supposed to put your suitcase on because I don't know how to work it. It falls over and my suitcase is too big. So I just throw it on the damn bed. And here's why they say never to do that. Because you've just been wheeling that suitcase through maybe an airport. Maybe you took your suitcase, if it's a carry-on, maybe into the airport bathroom. You wheel it around outside. You're wheeling it through the hotel lobby. You're wheeling those wheels on your suitcase are picking up all kinds of figurative and literal crap.
Mm-hmm. It's going everywhere your face is, everywhere your clothes are, everywhere you are.
Well...
But the floor.
It's fine. You need some germs, you know?
Well, no, I get that. I mean, it helps. You know, your immune system does need to do something in a day. I get it. But I just saw this and it just dawned on me like, oh God, yeah, the stuff that's on the wheels of your suitcase, and then I'm throwing it right on that bedspread that I'm already disgusted by.
And how many people have done that previously, and they haven't washed the bedspread?
I mean, they don't wash the bedspreads in hotels.
No. Not a chance.
The sheets underneath, but those bedspreads.
Sometimes
we did that in Vegas one year. We took out. That's all right. We just took out the Black Lake in Vegas one year. Don't do it.
Oh,
don't.
You actually did that?
Oh yeah, we did as part of the morning show stunt, and we went around to a couple of listeners' rooms, and it was pretty foul.
Wow.
Well, there's a few listeners I would be willing. I'd put crime tape across the door. I'd know that ahead of time. What were you going to say, Candace?
Oh, sometimes if my flight's delayed or something, or if I'm real hungover or lazy, I'll be so gross as to just post up on my suitcase in the airport and take a little snooze, face forward.
Oh my God, you are so gross. You are so. I bet Gigi wouldn't even kiss that mouth when you get home. Holy. I do remember I had been staying in hotels for years. The first time someone said, like, that bedspread's got, and someone gave me the first rundown of stats of how disgusting the phone probably is and the remote control, and that no one ever will. And I was like, if I'm not dead now, who cares? But this wheel on the suitcase thing, I got to admit, it's given me pause. And it does, and I does speak to that luggage rack that they unfold, that, you just pull it out of the closet in your room and you unfold. I've never made a suitcase stay on that thing for more than 4 seconds.
Rather flimsy.
All right.
It's just nonsense. Now, I mean, I do carry barbells in my suitcase. Maybe that's part of the problem.
Yeah, that might be it, yeah.
Fun fact for all you basketball players out there, there's a 17-year-old high school senior in Parker, Colorado. Her name is Madison Neal, and she is now in the Guinness Book of World Records because while at school, on her lunch break, she decided to go break a Guinness World Record, and it was 9 half-court shots in a row.
What?
She went to her high school's gym during lunch break, and in one streak, and there's a video on YouTube, and it takes about a minute and a half, she just shoots and hits 9 straight half-court shots.
How is that possible? She could just clean up, traveling the country as sort of a hustler, going to these half-court shot deals that they do at halftime.
Sure.
And I mean, somebody just won $10,000 in a couple of years ago down in Mankato. Guy did a half-court shot for 20 G's.
I just saw a half-court shot at a Lakers game from this season. They called the guy's name out. They brought him out on the floor. They get the crowd all excited, and he dribbles and takes like 3 steps and launches the ball. And as he lands, he tore his Achilles.
Oh gosh.
Oh.
And he goes down, and like you do when you tear an Achilles, and then he sits there, and I've never done this, but what people have said is there's a pop and there's a shot of pain, but then it's actually not, as long as you're not on it, it really isn't terribly painful for very long. I tore my bicep tendon, and that's exactly what happened. Within a few minutes, it was like, well, as long as I don't move it, it doesn't hurt. And so this guy's sitting on the floor, and we've all seen these events at sporting events. There's a dude with the microphone going, "Oh, good shot! We're going to give you a chance to shoot a 3-pointer for $500." And he puts his hand out to help the poor guy up. And by that moment, the guy's like, "Yeah, I think I'm okay." And he pulls the guy to his feet, and then the guy is hopping on one foot. And the dude from the team with the microphone, Mr. Entertainment, you can tell he's like, is this shtick? Did this guy really hurt himself? There's a few seconds where it's really awkward, and finally the guy's like, "I can't do it, man," and he falls back to the floor. It's just terrible. I mean, he full on goes Kobe Bryant out there when he busted his Achilles. It's like, man, just trying to launch it from mid-court, you can do the Achilles.
Now, how many did she make in a row?
9.
I just feel like that's like lottery odds to pull that off, but.
Well, it's funny. I had my high school basketball coach was Roy Woolham. He was from Eastern Kentucky. But he was in his late 40s when I met him, and I thought he was 100. He was one of those guys. And he would, like, the first day of practice, he gathers us around. And my high school was a big soccer school, but we were terrible at basketball back when I was there, which says, thankfully, because in large part because I was one of the members of the team, we sucked. In the state of Kentucky, it's like, if you're not a good basketball team, what are you? But that started to change when he showed up my junior year. We finally got a real coach for the first time, actually. And the first day of practice, he's the guy who says, "Now, boys, I want you to gather around here." And we're in Western Kentucky. He's from Eastern Kentucky, and we're all trying to figure out what the hell he's saying half the time. But one of the things he did is on the first practice, he went to midcourt, and he had 3 basketballs. And he said, "Now, I'm going to shoot these from midcourt, and I'm going to hit all 3 of them. And if I don't, then we're going to," and he had this thing. And I watched this man shoot 3 straight, and they all went in. First day of practice. And we were like astounded. And his point was that if you have a form and a follow through, and if you commit to craft, and it all went right over our heads. We were just like, he just hit 3 balls from midcourt.
Yeah.
But he did something that I've never forgotten. And if you have a little kid who plays basketball, I'm just going to give you a tip right now, because this is an amazing visual aid that helps people shoot better. He took a rim that was not attached to a backboard, and he put it down on the floor. He said, that's a standard rim right there. And then he put in that rim 2 basketballs. Did you know 2 basketballs fit inside one rim?
No. What?
It's a full-on fact. Next time you're at Dick's Sporting Goods and they have a rim that's low, put 2 basketballs in your hands. 2 balls fit in a basketball rim.
Next to each other?
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's wider than the width of 2 balls.
You hear Tony?
Isn't that nuts?
He's freaking me out.
It's free. This was in 1981, and I'm still freaked out by this information.
I want to see someone do a double slam then. Obviously in an exhibition style deal, just like double slam 2 balls at once.
You got it. You don't have a lot of wiggle room. You got to really get them in there at the right angle.
Right.
But I'm telling you, lay a rim down, or just if you have a low rim you can reach. 2 full-size basketballs fit in there at the same time. Right. And the minute someone shows you that, you're like, oh my God, how could I ever miss a shot? It's an amazing aid that helps you with your shot. At least I think it did.
That. Psychologically, yeah, right, exactly. It's so big, it sort of relaxes the mind. I've got this. That rim is that hoop's huge. Collectively, I looked this up while we were talking. Collectively, NBA players try shots from beyond half court a few hundred times each season.
Right.
Approximately 1 in 100 of those shots are made. And this 17-year-old woman swished, 6 of them?
9.
But
9.
9 in a row.
9 in a row.
Shots in a row.
Not in a game, not being guarded, but still,
right.
it's really impressive. I would be willing to bet if Steph Curry decided he wanted that record, he could go get the record. I bet a lot of players could, but it wouldn't be cool for an NBA player to do that.
Wouldn't it?
I don't think so. It's kind of like, dude, come on, let a school kid from Colorado have the record. But yeah, I'd find it hard to believe Steph couldn't hit 10 from midcourt if he wanted to.
Now, that would be fun if he just came out today and went, what? Some 17-year-old, and then just, put in 10 and walked away.
It'd be awesome. In fact, I said it wouldn't be cool. It'd actually be the coolest thing ever. Come on, Steph Curry. Get out there. Hell, Ant-Man could probably. Come on, let's go, Ant-Man. By the way, as long as we're here, the best record in the Western Conference right now belongs to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Right. Oh, I thought you were going to say the Wild.
No, that may also be be I haven't checked.
No.
No, dude, the T-Wolves are for real.
Yeah, the Wild are not.
I tell you what, something else that's very real is tomorrow is 60 years since the assassination of JFK. And right now, as long as we're looking back, let's have a history lesson. On this day, November 21st, 1981, Jim McMahon played his final game as the quarterback at Brigham Young University. He had 565 yards in his final collegiate game. When he left to go to the NFL, drafted number 1 by the Chicago Bears, Jim McMahon had 70 NCAA passing records. 70. And by the way, he left BYU, and his replacement there was Steve Young. BYU had some quarterbacks in the day. 5 years later, Jim McMahon, of course, won a Super Bowl with the Bears, the shuffling crew, Chicago Bears, Walter Payton, Refrigerator Perry. They beat the Patriots like a redheaded stepchild in the Superdome in that Super Bowl. And I know from a person who was on that team who was Jim McMahon's drinking buddy that when the sun came up, Super Bowl Sunday, they were still out at a bar in the French Quarter, and it was a Patriots bar, and Patriots fans were buying them drinks, thinking they could get them drunk enough to where they wouldn't perform. It meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. Jim McMahon, hungover as hell, just lit the Patriots up like there was no tomorrow. He was... There ain't guys like that quarterbacking teams in the NFL anymore, ladies and gentlemen.
He had to stop by Minnesota here for a little bit, that Mr. McMahon.
Did he? I forgot all about that. Yep.
Yeah, he did. They also said Joe Namath, before he won Super Bowl III, after making that bold prediction guaranteeing the win, pulled an all-nighter.
Well, sure.
Was out all night long, seen partying all night long in New York, and downtown in a hotel and then an after bar, and came stumbling out and into a cab to go play the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man, that fur coat wasn't going to wear itself.
Broadway.
The KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.